Welcome to Words of Light for Today, a teaching ministry that shares godly principles while giving spiritual insight and divine revelation from the Word of God for the everydayness life brings. Be richly blessed as we join Linda Adkins.
When there's no care and there's no effort on your part, then you become what you become. You become, it doesn't take long for habits to form either. I think psychiatrists say that 3 weeks forms a habit. Take 3 weeks or longer to break a habit. But if you want to live without God, the whole world is living without God. So that's not a hard thing to do. But on the other hand, if you want to do the opposite of that, if you want God, if you want to live in a relationship with a living Almighty God, then you know what? You're going to have consistency in persisting and just keep on doing, just keep moving. You see, the other way, you don't have to do anything. There's no effort on your part at all. But if you're going to go with God and stay with God, you're going to have to come up against and resist the opposition that is continually there. We walked down a little river run that was just about ankle deep. Some places it was knee deep. But you had to walk down it, you had to walk against the water. Because to walk down, the water was flowing up, and to walk and enjoy the little hike, you had to walk against the water. And do you know, by the time I got back to the car, I was give out because I had walked against that rushing water for about a mile, and a mile, to come back to the car, and that water pushing against me caused such a force against my legs until I was very tired. Now, that's what it is to have to live for the Lord. There has to be an effort. There's going to be effort, because He don't just fall down on top of us. When you dig for gold, that's exactly what you're doing. You have to make an effort to find gold. You have to make an effort to find diamonds. Diamonds are created 75 miles under the earth. 75 miles. I told Howard that I was writing the book, A Character of Diamonds in a World of Glass. And I said, did you know diamonds were 75 miles under the earth? He said, no, that's not right. I said, yeah, it is. I've been studying it. No, you got it wrong. 75 miles under the earth would be to China. I said, no, it ain't to China. It's to the diamond field. Well, now you better go back and look. I said, well, you come in here with me and you look. And so I brought back up the piece that I was studying on diamonds and how they brought diamonds up from that depth of the earth. They're not just laying around all over the top of the ground. If they were, we'd all have them. If gold was laying around like that, we'd all have it. And see, if you could have a life with God without any effort, we might all have it. But it takes effort. It takes resistance. It takes the ability to resist and yet stay brave and courageous. Because you're going to go up against what is the normal for everybody else. So anyway, we found out that diamonds indeed grow and are brought to the top of it's called the kimberlite pipes. It's old pipeways that the lava made from volcanoes. And there's pipes that the diamonds, the pressure of the earth on the inside pushes those diamonds up so that they can be dug for and become rings. But only 2% of all diamonds that are mined in the world are of jewel quality. 2%. 2% of all the diamonds that are mined from the earth, 2% are jewel quality. My goodness. So there's not a lot of people that's going to make the effort, come against themselves, deny themselves, and follow Him. There's not a lot going to do that. But if you do, then the habit of relationship with God begins to form. Now, when you talk about habit, most people think that you're talking about the habit of smoking or drinking or women or gambling. Every time you say the word habit, people automatically think something bad. Overeating, overdoing this, overdoing that. We don't look at the word habit like we should all the time, because habit forms your character. Now, if we think that drinking and smoking and lying and stealing and gambling are habits that are to be resisted, then we can have a habit of abstaining. You don't have to drink. You don't have to smoke. You don't want to do those things. Oh my goodness. But you see, there's two aspects to character, and here's what they are: the divine aspect and the human aspect. Factors that shape and hallow habits for us. That is creating our character. Now, when you realize that these two factors, they come from influence, and here's what the influences are. The two influences are, number one, God. Number two is circumstances. Circumstances in your life influence you greatly. Well, I can't do that because this happened. I'm better not try that because that won't work because this is happening. So influences, and God begins to help us when we yield to Him, move to Him, go to Him. He begins to help us allow the influence that He has, that we can live by and under from Him, to develop our character. He wants people that He can trust. We always talk about trusting Him. I want Him to be able to trust me. I want Him to be able to trust me to do the right thing when you don't even know where I'm at. You may not know where I am, but He always knows. And the same thing with you. I may not see you or know what you're doing at the moment, but someone always does, and it's Him. He knows your thoughts and your feelings and your attitude. He knows what can easily influence you or what doesn't move you at all. Mercy me. Listen, people. When you realize that the circumstances of your life, the joys, the sorrow, the hopes, the trials, things that you've gone through your whole life. I used to think mine was Linda Trial Adkins. Because every time I turned around, there was another thing to face. There was another thing to press through. There was another thing, death or loss or whatever. And there was always somebody to help. You know, we get into these things and we don't realize that our habits begin to be formed with decisions. The decisions that you make are influencing you deeply. The way you were treated influences you. And sometimes you get over that and sometimes you never do. because the relationship with Him doesn't go deep enough to fix it. My God, people. So we see that there's these two determining factors in the divine and the human. And here's what happens. If God is allowed to restore us, He's allowed to correct our thinking, He's allowed to show us something out of His Word. If we will choose His truth rather than what we think we've learned, then that influence, I'm telling you, it produces a higher aspect of your character from the very touch of His truth in your life. The very touch of His truth is His divinity. That's why the aspect of our character is formed by our relationship with Him, or not. See, Israel chose not to. And he knew that he was going to have to be prophesying some things to them. But he said to them, you from your youth up have chosen this. You've been doing this since you were young and small. And now you are grown. And your choice is still the same. You do not want God. And if he says he has something to say to you, Jeremiah said to them, you stop up your ears and say, we will not hear you. Now, you know, you don't want the divine in your life, then here's what happens. You don't have a gracious spirit. When the divine is not permitted into your life, when the touch of God is not the first thing, listen, you're not gracious. You are a grumbler. You're tired from all of your labors and all of your stuff. And it's not me really, it's just all these people around me. And God never talks to you about other people. He had called me to preach, and He wouldn't talk to me about other people until He had talked to me about me. Oh my God. And so I had to do something with me. And so if you're going to have that aspect of your character that is totally settled in God, you're going to have the aspect of the divine. You're going to have that. You're going to have not telling the truth just when you think somebody's listening and they were there too. Not allowing the part of our character to develop that keeps our spirit with a deep gratitude. I got here not because of what I've done, but because you brought me here. Because your hand has been on me, and it's kept me moving even against opposition. He did that. He did that. He places that. Well, you know, I come from a bunch of courageous people. Pooh. You know, people that haven't contacted God don't know what courage is or bravery is. Courage is not being without fear. It's just going on anyway. Just do it anyway. Courage is when you know this is the way to go, but it's the hardest route. It's not the fastest. It's not the best. But this is it. We've got to go this way. That is when you need that aspect in your life, that habitual forming of the divine on the inside of you. My goodness, that is the hallowing of it. You see, there's a law to habit. There is a law to habit. You should write this down or remember it. There's a law to habit like there is a law to life. The law to habit says it's going to form. Whether it is a good habit or a bad habit, it's going to form. And what you do on an automatic basis is what people are going to see in your life. And it can be automatic, negative responses or thoughts. And I tell you what, your mind never knows rest. Hear me, it never knows rest. There's never not anything for you to grumble about. Because you can grumble about something that would make the ordinary person happy. Without the divine in your life, you're critical. Without the divine influence on your mind and on your soul, you are totally against what everybody else is for. And I have met and known and pastored people in this church that they would wait until everybody said what they thought, and then they would be just the opposite of everybody. So the Lord, I prayed about that because I was meeting those kinds of people all the time. So the Lord told me one day, He said, ask them first. You look at somebody and ask them first. And I tell you something right now, when the Holy Ghost in you speaks to someone like that, there's no pushing back. So when I asked them first, they had to answer first. Well, no, you go ahead and let everybody else. No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you first. I want to know what you think first. And you see, the Spirit of God can help you move against things that's designed to push you over. But with the divine involved, there is not that. You learn how. Help me. How do I handle this? What do I do with these people? And He'll tell you, ask of them first. Isn't that just like God? And I was so involved in it, I couldn't have thought that, but He thought it for me. And because I have already chosen a path of habit of listening to Him, then I heard Him. But you see, the law of habit, if you were on a blackboard and you wrote the law of habit, you would put equals law of life. So whatever has happened in your life has incurred the habits that are in your life. Law of life equals law of faith, because your law of life has incurred it's started everything in your life. Oh my goodness. When you come to a place of realizing that you need these two aspects, you begin to acquire and hallow the habit of praying. You know, you can go 2 or 3 days without praying, 2 or 3, 4 days a week without reading the scriptures, without getting in touch with God, without going back to God. Well, I'm busy. Well, if you're that busy, then you need to start the day off like that. You need to start the day off talking to Him. And I've brought you suggestions and told you, when you open your eyes before you even get out of bed, start talking to God. That's probably going to be the best moment that you have during the entire day, is to say, I'm alive and I thank you and you're my God and I want you to govern my day. Amen. You start off a day like that and you won't be near so tired when you get home. You won't be near so drug out. But I'm telling you right now, the habit that we consume, we need to be consuming the habit of faith, the habit of love. Which way are we going with it? Well, we're going to believe God. Well, I know, but they've said, well, we're going to believe God. Regardless of what they've said, we're going to believe God. And we have seen that work. Amen. That is not a silly, religious, stupid thing. I tell you, when I found out I was stupid back years ago, I also found out I didn't have to stay that way. And if you find that out too, if you find out, well, that was a stupid thing for me to do, well, don't do it anymore. If it was a stupid thing, don't do it anymore. Well, that was a stupid thing for me to say. Well, don't say it anymore. Don't say it again. But you can stop yourself from being stupid, just don't be stupid. It's just that simple. You need the human side of this thing. Realize that you're capable as anyone else of making some bad mistakes. And then doubling down with your decision. Now, I want to tell you, a lot of people will tell you, you cannot go against the grain of things. They'll tell you if you're going to cut meat with the grain. If you don't, and you try to fry or cook meat that's cut the wrong way, it's tough. So there's a grain to us. But let me tell you, you can become so divinely attached to God and so incredibly decided that you're going to stand with Him, that He's your choice, that even the grain will begin to follow your habit.
Hallelujah.
It don't look like much now. Well, I've got to break some habit. Well, go ahead and do it. Start right now. And 20 days later, it'll be broken. By you constantly staying with it and paying attention and watching out. Listen to yourself when you talk. Watch your feelings. Be aware when your feelings change or your attitude changes. Is it because somebody didn't give you your way that your attitude changes? Or you puff up? If you puff up, you're going to pop off. You sure will. You'll be said things, and see, that's the habit you're trying to break. You're trying to stop that. Because I don't want that part of our character. I don't want it part of my character. I want the grain of truth and love and faith and the habits that I want that so formed in me through habit that it flows with the things of God. I want to be gracious to people. And I realize that graciousness is the outcome of knowing how to use grace. But you can't use grace without faith. You don't know how to use grace. Somebody says, we'll take the grace of God. You don't know how to do that if you don't use your faith. But here's the thing. We're going to come to this place where the demand of our habits is going to be right in line with the demand of this word. We're going to change the ones that are not according to this. And if you keep looking into this, you're going to see some things that you do that He don't want. And when you find them, see, and don't just put it away, keep looking into it. Because once you see it with your eyes and you understand it in your heart and you say it with your mouth, it's accomplished in your life. That's why the aspect of heaven, of habit, is divine and human. The human part of me that's on this planet, I'm going to choose Him because I see this is the best way to go. So these habits then are hallowed on the side of the divine instead of being hallowed on the side of not knowing God. Gracious me. We want this. We want to realize that everything about our character has everything to do with what we're habited to doing. Now, we all know how to behave, in company. We all know how to behave when people are watching. We all know how to do and what is socially expected of us. We don't want to be rude. We don't want to be ugly. We don't want to say things unless somebody pushes us too far. And then, our explanation is they ask for that. But a gracious person that's already set their character in the divine, they're going to choose a gracious way. You know, a lot of times Jesus just stood there and looked at people. He didn't answer them. He just stood there and looked at them. And if he wasn't about to do what they wanted, then he just walked away. Don't answer somebody that's grumbling. Don't answer somebody that's critical. Don't try to pet people out of their nasty. Some people they're just nasty. They got a nasty way. They've got an ugly way. You don't give them what they want, you're going to be sorry. Well, I've come through just in this place, not counting the one where I started, but just in this place, 34 years of dealing with people. 34 years, week after week after week, 3 times a week, dealing with people. And you know what? You learn how to read. You learn how to see. You learn just by hearing. And if you let people talk long enough, they'll show you just where they are. If they're walking in the divine, connected to the divine, everybody that comes to church wants people to think that they're just the godliest. But you know, when you first get to church, that's when you need God. And so I want our habit to be hallowed. Listen, I want our habit to be hallowed by His righteousness. Hallowed means consecrated. Hallow means dedicated. Hallow means yielded. So when you hallow something, when you hallow your character, that means you have turned everything over to the consecration of the divine. So that the righteousness of God is not just a saying, it is a truth. It is a truth and it is a reality.
You have been watching Words of Light for Today with Linda Adkins. For prayer or a free CD of today's message, please call 904-289-9727. Visit our website at wordsoflight.org, where you may order explosive and anointed teaching messages or other great resources from our bookstore. Be blessed and join Linda Adkins next time as she brings Words of Light for Today.